Paul. Paul Friends welcoming you to Star of the Universe on call. And tonight we got me, we got Barry. That's about it tonight. So hope you enjoyed us discussion. And with that, I should actually introduce you to Barry. Hi, Barry. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
Oh, we already had that discussion.
Yeah, it's been a hot one here today.
Tonight's topic.
Well, tonight's topic is an interesting topic. It is tournament ships. In this case, the changes to the tournament ships that are going in for the Sapphire Star 6 tournament. Those 10, since I'm sure you don't keep an eye on these things. These are the changes.
No, I haven't been checking.
Understood. I don't know the last time you actually checked what comes out.
Are they coming out with a mod?
What?
Are they coming out with a module T 2020?
Not yet. If it would sell, they do it. But at the moment, no. They just had a few changes for the tournament. And my guess is partly going to be a play test of sorts, even though they're official. Some of these ships have already been played multiple times. It's just that there's been no play test reports officially sent to ADB for a while for some of these ships. The changes are numero uno. The Fed now has a G-Rack. And
wow, that's a bit overdue.
Yep. Oh, agreed. Let me bring it up.
Wow.
And okay, the drone rack.
What's preloaded? What's preloaded in the G-Rack?
That's what I was about to tell you. The drone rack has 2 drones in it. I'm assuming the normal type 1, medium.
Type 1. Yep.
And 4 ads. The Federation player has the option to replace the ads with type 6M, the dogfight drones, after learning his opponent.
Dogfight.
Right. So you can either have ad racks. Say it again?
Wait. So he can replace it with 4 Type 6 drones, or
you can have 4 Type 6 zones or 4 ad rounds.
Yeah. That's his choice.
Yeah. Depends.
Or is there a third option?
No, that's it. That's the 2.
Well, that's a huge improvement.
Agreed. And of course,
that's a huge improvement.
Yeah, and of course,
go ahead.
Normal things apply, which is no reloads, no scatter pack.
Right. Now, yeah, which is, the standard ADD rack has 12 ADD rounds, so he's somewhat limited there. But at least he has, you said 2 drones. Wow. So it's really a small rack. It's an A rack, not a G rack, but
yeah, a G rack, which is basically the size of an A rack.
Right. It's not. G rack is the same size as an A rack, but just more flexible.
Right, because a G rack has the ability to fire ad rounds.
ADDs.
Hmm?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, an ADD rack would have been much more useful. With 12 ADDs.
Mm-hmm. Understood, but at the same time, no one, to my knowledge, has ever pushed for that. Especially because when it comes to feds, how many ad racks are on their systems? Normally, the feds usually use G racks.
Right.
Adiraks you see on the Zinnies, you see on the Klingons.
That's true.
So the whole idea is basically to have it consistent with the actual empire itself.
Right. The other possibility would be nice to trade in the 2 Type 1 drones for 4 ADD rounds. Give you a total of 8 ADD rounds. That would be a nice option.
Understood. But currently there is not one to my, at least this time around. As it is, it's a change. We'll just have to wait and see how it all goes, because of, yes, I know there have been multiple people who've actually tried out this ship already. But most people,
it's a huge improvement.
yeah, it's a huge improvement. And most people that I've heard is that this helps balance things. It helps to actually have an alternate weapon of sorts, because of the big problem with the photons.
Right. It addresses the Fed's biggest weakness.
Right. So that's one of those things that got added. They decided to make that's now the official tournament cruiser. So I was like, ooh, wow,
Okay.
That's cool.
That is wow. Any other changes? Maybe the Andro got some changes that you like.
Yes, they did. Basically, they took the playtest 2011 Andromedan, and they made it official that it has TR heavies instead of the TR lights.
So it's got 2 TR heavies.
Mm-hmm. 6 phaser 2s.
And what else?
6 phaser 2s, 3 batteries.
How many? 6.
6 phaser 2s. Not the crazy 8 phaser 2 version.
Yeah.
3 batteries.
Okay, but only 2 batteries.
Only 3 batteries. There's 3.
Oh, 3 or 2?
3.
3 batteries.
It needs 3. It
that's
cannot.
a little bit light.
Barry, it cannot survive with 2. It cannot survive. Period. 3 is.
I know, but 3 battery. 3 is. How many does the current one have?
Has the one have?
Well, how many does the current Andro have?
It had 3. The initial one,
so it's 3.
way back in the year 2000. Can't believe I'm saying that. That one had 6 batteries, and that was the whole. And that was the whole issue that people had with it, which was that the Andromedan had the defense was too strong.
Right. With 6 batteries, you could panel dump all day long.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I remember Paul Scott pointing out at Origins, when we were discussing the Andromedan, and one thing he pointed out explicitly was that the Andromedan, it was not, the problem was not the offense, and people wanted to keep on tweaking the offense, and it wasn't. The problem is not the offense. The offensive punch of the Andromedan, that was not the issue. And people wanted to modify that. It's like, no, the issue is defense. That the defense was too strong.
Yeah. Right.
And as it is, to me,
Six batteries.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I would like to have one more battery. And this is the reason. Because if it had one more battery, it actually would have the opportunity. Would it? No, even that it wouldn't have that. It would have a better shot of actually doing a panel dump.
Yes.
It still would require a little bit of
batteries.
It would still require some degradation to have it so it could do it, because of the duo to actually have the ability to do a panel dump. It requires to have at least without any damage to the rear panels, you need 25 batteries. So you need at least 5 batteries. But 4 batteries, that you can still do it with that. You just obviously there has to be some degradation in the rear panels, and that's easy enough to arrange because that's where everyone wants to fire. But 3 is it is a difficult thing to do. It still takes planning, and also there's going to be some turns where your panels are going to be so full. The only thing you can do is you cannot do the panel dump. The only thing you can do at that moment in time is going to be to dissipate the energy that's in the panels and then absorb the energy from the panels into the batteries. And that's all you can do. And then you have to hope and pray that you can stay away from your opponent long enough so that you can actually drain the battery that you drain the panels enough and then drain the battery enough so then you can do a panel dump. And that's not easy.
Right. Excuse me, is that clouds or is that a mountain in the distance? That's just clouds. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine. So he agreed to actually.
Now, did they give it an energy module at all?
No. And I think that's fair. To me, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you truly want to really fine tune the defensive capability of the Andromedan, you would decrease the batteries down to 2. So he has enough power so he can run around. And given an energy module.
An energy module.
Right, which will allow him to do a panel dump once, maybe twice, depends upon how big of an energy module you put in the ship. And that's something, the great thing about an energy module is something is inherently tweakable. You could even, if you really wanted to, you could create an energy module which does not exist in normal SFB, just for the tournament.
Right. Yeah.
So that that's one of those things that I would like. It'd be kind of cool, but this is a simplified version in my mind. I think it is actually playable, and as it is.
Yeah.
There's at least one person who's already signed up who already is going to be playing the Andromedan. So we know it's definitely going to be in the next tournament.
Let me guess who that would be.
Actually, we might have 2. The funny part is that I just saw on Facebook that.
So basically, the changes are.
What's that?
So what you're saying is the basic changes where they went to 2 TR heavies.
Right. Which is fine. To me, that was the biggest issue.
It doesn't have the power for that.
Yeah, to me, the TR heavies it needed it because it needed enough firepower that even if you do a reinforcement, you'll get some damage. I'm not asking for a lot. I'm asking for at least a dent. Right. Something that makes it worth the while of the Andromeda player to even fire. Because that was the most frustrating thing ever to occur to me, ever in play. Where you had a disruptor guy playing a Klingon who basically, on the turns that I was going to fire, or had the ability to fire, he wouldn't fire. He just put all his power into reinforcement. Or what he would do is he would stop. So he would castle so that he had lots of power to reinforce and then also had enough power to actually overload his disruptors too. So I could, if I would have fired at him, it would have been pointless.
It might scratch his reinforcement.
Probably wouldn't even scratch. It wouldn't probably get past the reinforcement. And since he's castling, I have no way of getting to that down shield. Even if I would do a displacement over him to get around to the other side. He can just do a het before I actually can fire. So,
or if he has things arranged properly, he might have two tacks. And if you wait to displace until he tacks, he's still got a reserve tack.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
He can do the work tacks and hold the impulse tack in reserve, and then you displace over him. By the time you've done that, he tacks again.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So to say about this, it was, as I said, it was one of the most frustrating games I've ever played in the Andromedan. Because when I fire and I get 16 points of damage and don't get a single, I roll decent enough to get 16 points of damage with 2 TRLs, and I don't even scratch the paint on it. It's just infuriating.
Yeah. Right. But I still think the ship needs more power.
Probably. Well, we'll have to wait. One thing at a time, Barry. One thing at a time.
I know. But how many decades did we have to wait for what we got now?
Yeah, I know. But I feel like that ADB might be a little more receptive, at the very least, to modifying it further if we can prove to them that we've got these really good players that cannot win in the Andromedan.
Right.
You know, so
yeah,
it should be interesting. Actually, I'm at the moment. The only reason I'm debating on signing up for the tournament is because I want to give people the opportunity to play in the tournament, because there's a limit to 16 slots. So,
now, another ship that took you some love is the King Eagle.
What would you do to the King Eagle? I mean,
well,
honestly.
that's always been considered the King Eagle is the weak sister in the Romulan stable.
Oh, I agree. But the thing is, what can you do? They've done as much as I feel like they've done as much as they can without completely ruining the flavor of the ship. They've increased the armor up to 10 points of armor. They've made it so that it actually has pseudo plasma Fs in tournament play.
Yeah.
It has, the decent, arrays of phasers on the rear, so it has good, decent drone defense, not great, but decent drone defense. It's got the 4 phaser ones, which I know is not great, but I think it still has the 6 batteries. I have to double check on that. So I'm not sure what you could actually modify to the King Eagle to make it so that let's back up. Let's back up for a moment. The big question here, in my mind, is the King Eagle competitive? Does it have a chance? I understand that the biggest issue with the King Eagle is this. It's got 3 torps. Not 4, it's got 3.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Right.
That cannot be solved without ruining the flavor of the ship itself, i.e. changing that R to 2 S's. I don't,
let me ask a question. Could we upgrade the F's to G's or add a 3rd F rear arc?
Well, Russ, as a reminder, the King Eagle does have a transporter bomb that you can drop out out the rear. That Actually, that's one thing they could, in theory,
true.
that's one thing they could do, which I would love myself. Give it back its nuclear space mine. The
Because
35 freaking point
give it back
mine.
to the boat. No, it's only 30 points.
With 30, well, still 30 points. That's a whole shield.
Yeah, there's a full-blown NSM. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And with hidden deployment.
Yep. Hidden deployment.
Oh yeah.
I think that would definitely help it tremendously. You know, I think I think that could definitely offset having only one R, because if you get that person to hit that mine, oh man. I at first,
It's game over.
yeah, the first, not necessarily game over, but it would knock down that one shield.
No, it's not. But
Yeah, Russ is saying NSM is too much, but another limited bomb might assist in the prolonging death. Yeah, maybe. Well, that is a good question. Could we? Is that possible? In theory, you could. Yeah. Because normally the King Eagle, that actually can have transporter bombs. So
right.
why don't we give it another transporter bomb? That's a possibility.
Yeah. Maybe even a fake or two.
Right. That's also what I was thinking about. Is I have to double check, because I'm pretty sure the King Eagle at this moment in time does not actually have fake T bombs. But when you roll out
Right.
the T bomb, because you can only roll it out, you can't transport it. Which, whatever.
Yeah.
That might be another thing that could help, which is allow the T bomb to be transported. Yeah.
And then give it a fake.
Right. Give it an additional T bomb and allow it to have fakes. But especially since currently it's not hidden. So in a way, you need the fakes so that you can have it so that people don't know which one is the real one, which one's the fake one, which one they want to take damage, which they don't want to. Because currently the Andromedan has a T bomb. It still has this T bomb. Remember that.
Right.
And it still has the fake T bomb. Which actually, that was one of those weird rules that I actually remember explicitly asking Steve Petrick about, which was, how much damage does it take to destroy a fake T bomb? And he said 1 point of damage. So, in theory, as crazy as it sounds, in theory, you can actually put out a fake T bomb so that it actually takes damage from like a Lyran's ESG and take 1 point of strength off that ESG. It's crazy, but that was one of those things that I was thinking of, because I was trying to think of, all of the possible things that you could do. That's also one of the things that kind of ticked me off about the tournament, which is you can't use probes. Why in God's green earth, except for as emergency weapons? Why in God's green earth won't you allow people to use probes? Because in my mind, allowing people to use probes is a great benefit. And here's why. For the people who like the Andromedan, I'll admit, it would help the Andromedan. With the ships that have smaller set of labs, unlike the Fed or even the Klingon. The Klingon has 4 labs. If I recall correctly, the Orion and the Andromedan both have 2 labs. So
Right.
giving it the ability to waste energy on, or quote unquote waste energy for charging a probe, so it can then use that to identify a a, a seeking weapon. What's the harm in that?
Right.
You know, why did you remove such an
I don't.
obvious, help for those people who, those ships that don't have, a large number of labs, especially given
Okay.
some, high, seeking weapon.
Hang on.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Gabby, take a look at all the scrub brush over there. Yeah, it's kind of neat. Oh, wow. And look over there. Oh, this is beautiful terrain. Sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
But yeah, so it's an obvious solution for those ships that don't have the labs, because especially in the heavy seeking weapon environment, where you have the Zinni, where you have the Klingon, where you have the Wind, especially the Wind auxiliary battle cruiser that can have Octopig. Yeah, that's what it's called, Octopig, where you can have basically, you can have 8 drone racks. I think it's 8.
I know.
You got all these drones, and if you don't have enough labs, you're in trouble. And just having one more lab can make the difference. So that's one of those things that I still rant and rave, even after probably 20 years.
Yeah.
I've been bugged about that for that long.
I hate to say this, Paul, but can I drop out at this point, because I'm in unbelievably gorgeous terrain.
Sure. Bombings.
Okay. Talk to you next week.
Okay. See you.
See ya.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, Barry didn't get to talk about the last and final official one, and I'm showing it right here on the screen for everyone to see. The most gorgeous ship in the world. Actually, I don't believe that. I think one of the most gorgeous ships in the world is the B-10T. But that's just one of those things that's unique. That's one of those unique ships. I kind of like the Frignaut. I think is also a very cool ship. What the heck? Huh. That's weird. Because I don't think Barry's here, and I don't see him. So I'll let that sit there for the moment. I'm just going to move this over here. So just want to let y'all see this beautiful ship. For those who are on the video feed, for those who are just listening to the podcast, the audio feed, which is fine, but I'm not going to leave you out. It is the Voodoo Tournament Cruiser. Now, if you've ever been on the online client, I don't remember if they actually had this available for the for download from StarfleetGames.com. I don't remember if that was available or not. I know it's been an unofficial ship for quite a bit of time. And for those who are on the audio feed only, and one thing, okay, you can get this beautiful ship. It's got 2 phaser 2s in the rear, so rear arcs with phaser 3s one on the right, one on the left. So you got okay, seeking weapon defense there when you're running away. You got the 6 phaser 1s in the front arc, and then of course you've got ion pulse generator. And just a reminder that the IPG cannot be used in jamming mode, but can be used in defensive ionic wave mode. So basically, you've got the biggest freaking seeking weapon killer on the planet, next to the ESG. Just a remind. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Give me a sec here. Let me bring up that rule about the IPG. And the modes, jamming mode and this defensive wave mode. Just a reminder of what it does. Each point of energy expended in this mode produces 1 point of damage, which applies to all non-plasma size weapons, size 6 or 7. Which means that it will hurt fighters. It will hurt shuttles. So it will do wonders against the Hydran. It will do wonders against the Zinning, especially since, if I recall correctly, let me just double check on this because I'm pretty sure that as you can have up to 6 points of power into just like an actually 4 points of power. Let me look. Capacity. Hold up the maximum 4 points of power. Yep, there it is. So what that means is beautiful. What that means is that with an ionic wave pulse, with 4 points of power into that ionic wave, you can possibly kill a huge wave of drones. If you're facing a Zinti in the Vudar, that would not surprise me. I'll get back to Rush's comment in just a moment for those of you on the audio feed. But anyway, let me get back to the Vudar. And that is that given that there aren't going to be that many type 4, I apologize. Can't believe I got that wrong. Type 4 drones, which are the only ones that actually can survive a full 4 point pulse wave. You've got the ultimate drone killer. Because it doesn't matter how many drones you got, like the ESG. The ESG is limited by the amount of power and the range that you actually put into the ESG. That defines how much the strength of it is. So basically, if a Zinti decided to, let's say, do the whole 12 drone thing, and they're all, let's not say all, because you can't do all. Most of those, let's say 8 of those, are drones, are type 1 drones. So you're going to kill 8 of those. That would be 32 points of damage to an ESG. And then after that, then you can go ding ding with a couple of phaser 3s, and the whole drone wave is gone. So given that, the ion pulse wave generator is a wonderful thing when it comes to drone defense. Obviously, the biggest issue is that with plasma, the big issue for the Vudar will be plasma. And that is, it doesn't have the defensive armament to really help versus plasma. But of course, fortunately, you still have the normal ability for wild weasels. Look at that again, because what is this? Okay, he is considered left to call. That's weird. But anyhow, and then of course we have the 4 ion cannons. The 4 ion cannons are quite an interesting weapon by itself. And of course we have standards. Now we have 2 of them are forward arc, and actually the funny part about this is that they're not just, they're forward arc, and then we have 2 which are forward extended arc. And so given that It's 4 points of power. At least 1 point of power has to be ion. That's if you're that's just for standard. So, and remember that to hit is a 2d6. So from 6 to 8, you got a pretty darn good chance. You got over 50% chance of actually hitting at range 6 to 8. 4 to 5, even better. 2 to 3, better. 0 or 1, you can you can still miss. It's not automatic. Heck, even hellbores, if you think about it, aren't automatic at range. Is it range 0 that they're automatic? I think range 1 they're not automatic, like they're 11. So if you roll a 12, you miss, which is, I've actually seen that happen. It's a so sad. It's so sad when that happens. But anyhow, so the Voodoo, good defensive when it comes to drones, and also it can help greatly against the fighters. But of course, and you can actually be able to hurt the fighters to the degree where they're useless. With using the pulse generator and using phasers so you don't have the good point there. What I'm pointing out is that you don't have to use ion cannons. Now, in theory, you can use the ion cannons, though. Since it's an ion cannon, that would mean that you would still have to worry about the +1, I think it is. But that's also, I think, it's depending upon range. When those fighters get close enough in, you can hit them, and there's no penalty at all. Now, just look at this again. I forget what the right defensive wave energy release IPG announced. Okay. Okay. So anything within 2 hexes of the generating unit will get 4 points of damage. Can get up to 4 points of damage each. So it's even better when it comes to drone defense, in that you can kill them at range 2. So that still gives you one more shot to clean up anything that was a type 6. Which, there aren't that many type 6s for both the Zinni or the Klingon. And of course, you can still do some of the type 4s with like the winds and so forth. They just aren't fast. So, to the very least, the Vunars actually, plasma, it'll have problems with plasma. Of course, it's going to have the same problem that the Saltorian has, which is it has no, for the most part, it has no tertiary weapon. The IPG is kind of a tertiary weapon. So it's got better defense than the Saltorian. The Saltorian has better phasers. But as I said, the great thing about an IPG is that you can have as many drones as you want, and it costs you 4 points. 4 points to kill 8 drones, or possibly even 12 drones. I'm in. You want to talk about energy efficient? That's a heck of a way of being energy efficient. Getting back to the Fed for a quick moment, and that is for those of you on the lovely, lovely audio part of this podcast, and that is that Russ was mentioning that you can that it would seem desirable for the Feds to be on the strong side of competitive competition. I assume of competition. I would think he says of competitive. Maybe that makes sense. For purposes of attracting new blood, but photons require better die roll skills than I have. Yeah, I think it's definitely, in my mind, the addition of the drone rack to the G rack to the Fed is definitely a way of improving it, because it's one of those ships that has not changed for a long time. Of course, the Klingon has not changed for a long time, but I don't think anyone in the universe is actually requesting that the Klingon get better. You know, 'cause, anyone who does, they're itching for a fight, because if you think honestly about the whole situation, you think honest. Let's be honest here. The Klingon doesn't need any help. The Klingon has some of the best weaponry around, in my mind, and here's the reason why. Those stinking, unbreakable, doesn't break down, UIM modules. You get a UIM module that cannot break down. Unlike the actual rules themselves, the normal rules for the Klingon and using the UIM module, in that case, you have to roll a die to see, does it break down? Because if you decide to use it and it breaks down, you can no longer fire disruptors because they're connected into that interface, and they have to go and pull the freaking plug on that module, set up a bypass for that, because basically what you did, you burned it out. So there's normally a penalty. I think it's that your disruptors are offline for a turn while they basically disconnected. Versus what now is that there is no failure. So what does that mean? It means that 1 to 5 to hit out to range 8. Yes, there's only 6 points of damage, but you got almost a guaranteed shot at range 8. What the heck? Really? Come on. I think most people would agree that the Zinni itself is pretty balanced overall. You know, it's a nice large ship, so that's the one thing that I do truly appreciate about the Zinni, and that is the Zinni itself can take a licking and keep going. I still remember it was one of those stories I read in the captain's log. It was gold hat, how I won gold hat, and that is that I forget if the winning sides was the Zinni or the Fed. Because if it was the Fed, that was probably Bill Scheller. If it was the Zinni, it could have been anybody. It could have been Sandy Hemingway. Which, boy, that's a name, a blast from the past. And those youngsters never heard of Sandy Hemingway. You haven't read all the captain's logs. He had the original tactic that he came up with was that he would launch the shuttle, for the scatter pack. He would start slow, like a speed 14, I think it was. Have it so that it would launch the drones early into turn 1. Then then the Zinni would then pick up the shuttle and then take off. Then you do a mid-turn speed change and go fast. And that was so that you didn't have to abandon that shuttle. You could actually have it so that you might have an extra wild weasel. So, or an extra suicide shuttle if you want to go that way, which is interesting. I've seen that. That was one of those more interesting play by email games I've ever moderated, and that is that this one guy had it in his brain that he wanted to have 4 suicide shuttles. So you start with 2, and then he spent the first 3 turns charging these suicide shuttles. And it's like, what the heck? So basically, he wanted to max out his suicide. He wanted to max out his seeking weapons, because I think this was for the Win Oxbox, Ox BC. So, it's kind of crazy. But see, the thing is with the Zinni, it's one of those ships that you can take a full hit of a Fed. I'm not saying that if the Fed hits with 4 overloaded photons, you're going to still survive. In there, you can survive. possibly even the Zinni. But the question is, the problem is after that, what's going to follow it is usually going to be the phasers. Though, obviously, with the Zinni, the Fed might not want to do that just because of the amount of drones that the Zinni might have out and coming towards it. Yeah, and that's one thing Russ was just pointing out also about the Klingon, and that is it has a wide range of ways to fly it. It's very tactically diverse. The Fed is about as predictable as a ship as there is, and I agree that, and hopefully, the Type G, the G-Rack would give it a little more flexibility, a little more change when it comes to the tactics that are involved. Will 2 additional drones make a difference? Maybe not. But at the same time, it could, at the very least, it's like having a drone rack on an Orion. In that, one, like for the Orion, it normally you have a drone rack because you have the Hellbores, and so the idea is that it protects the Hellbores. But also, it's one of those weapons that you can launch, and it can be used on an inbound attack run, so that your enemy has to hold back some of its phasers that would normally be fired against you. Now, given that, I think that the Fed's change will make much of a difference. No, but it'll make things a little more interesting. I think tactically wise, it will definitely change things a bit around for people, and obviously people are going to have to pay attention to the change. They can't just dismiss it out of hand because of now the Fed. Okay, now you not only have to worry about the photons, but you have to worry about the drones. And in the case of when you have the ad racks, you have to worry about now it has some additional ways of fighting off the drones that you have. Getting back to the Zinni, and as I pointed out, it can take a licking and keep on ticking, and it can do that because of it's one of the larger ships in the tournament. And it's got a lot of phaser 3s, so it can take a lot of hits when it comes to the phasers. So which is also a bad thing because that means you don't phaser 1s wise, you don't have that many. But that's the Zinni. The Zinni is designed for knife fighting. You come in there with your phaser 3s and you bop them, you turn, you bop them again, you turn, you bop them again. You got all these phasers facing all these different directions. So that in a knife fight, you always got something to fire. When it comes to the, now when you come into the Gorn, oh Lord. One of the bad things about the Gorn is it's got the worst turn mode in the tournament. But one of the things it definitely has is it's got a good bit of hull, especially it's got center hull. So that so unlike the Fed or the Zinti, depending upon where the rolls land, you can take center hull. You have it's not just you don't just have rear, but you have that center hull, so that you can better take those hull hits. Now, obviously, one of the good things about the Gorn, and also kind of bad things about the Gorn, is the phasers. It's got phaser 1s. Unfortunately, the phaser 1s are targeted all over the place. Now, overall, at a minimum, they're always going to have 4 phaser 1s facing any direction for a Gorn. In some cases, you can actually have 6, or possibly, I think you can have it up to 8. Because I think the ones you have one left side, one right side, Gorn, phaser 1. So overall, it's good. And of course, you got the FPLP S-Torps, and then you have, of course, the left side, right side plasma Fs. So it's a decent plasma ship. So now, you got this one crazy ship which is called the ISC. It's got that PPD, but then it's got G-Racks. Not G-Racks, sorry. I got the Fed on the brain. But it's got G plasmas, and then of course it's got its F in the rear, but fortunately the Fs in the rear have a limitation. They are the standard IC defensive plasma Fs. That means that it only can fire one at a ship per turn, which, at least I'm pretty sure that applies. Fire one, so you can fire one plasma F at one ship per turn, and that for the most part, I don't think that's a big issue. And it's also, from my understanding, if I recall correctly, it's considered, at least from Paul Scott, that it's a decent knife fighter overall because of the plasma. Sorry, not the plasma. The phaser ones. Yeah, I think 6 phaser ones, and then you've got I forgot whether it's 4 or 6 phaser 3s, and the phaser 3s are left side, right side. So, of course, you got the collection of Romulans, as we pointed out with the King Eagle. The King Eagle, overall, it's got its issues, as we pointed out, and we already mentioned things that we think could actually solve the issue with the King Eagle. But one of the best ones is considered the KR, because of I think it's the KR is kind of middle ground between the Firehawk and the King Eagle when it comes to power. Cloak cost. It's in the mid range. The cheapest, if I recall correctly, is the Firehawk, which is 18. I think it's 19 on the I think the KR, and also I think one of those issues with the Romulans overall, I think is the KR. Is it the KR that I think? I think it's the KR that actually it's got one of the best. It's considered. I think it's one of the best, has the fastest speed, I think is what it is. It's got the fastest speed while cloaked, or can have the fastest speed while cloaked. And of course, it's got the not the phaser array of the Klingon, but it's got the turmoil of the Klingon. It's also got the nice LPRP plasma S's and also F's. Unlike the Firehawk has basically FP plasma S's, and then LP and RP plasma F's. So, the Firehawk, it's designed to hit its opponent dead on, or possibly even glancing. But what does that mean? That means that if you have a opponent chasing you and you're in the middle of recharge, you have to turn into that opponent. Now, if he's, obviously you have to do the same thing if you're in a KR and the opponent's directly behind you. But all you have to do is go chick, one little chick, one little quick turn, and you've got two plasmas which are facing your opponent. If he's chasing you in the rear. Now, if he's not chasing directly rear, you might not have to do anything. You might just keep launching because of that LP-RP arcs, which are beautiful for that. Now, obviously, if you're coming directly at your target, directly against the ship, or what else you're going to be launching those torps at, that becomes an issue, because of it only is in that the shield number 1 arc where they both are available. But the question is, in any plasma ship, how often Are you firing two? And now this is not bolting, this is launching. How often do you launch more than one of your heavy torps? Normally, you launch one heavy torp and one of like the Fs. The whole idea there is that to have your opponent be guessing, is that S a real S? Is that S or a pseudo? And why you do it that way is because of, in the case of anything, if you get close enough, that F, everyone knows it's real. Everyone knows it's real because it has to be real. But so, in which case, what happens is normally the opponent will then fire at the type Fs or run away, at least for the type Fs. Fire at the type Fs and run them down because they're real. And let the S hit. Well, if the S is real, well, that might have been a bad decision. When it comes to if you decide not to fire on it and you have weapons to fire on it. Now, obviously, the guaranteed reduce in damage is definitely going to be F, period. And that's why you do that. That's why you fire is a plasma F. But, so, it is what it is. Obviously, the Lyrans, just like the Centaurian, they have a problem with having a power-hungry ship. And that's the truth. And, they have the same solution as the Centaurian, which is, do I run around and slowly build back up my weapons as I'm running around at a higher speed? Or do I stop or go for very slow speed, allow me to recharge the weapons I have? Now, the one thing that I've talked to you guys about this before, and I'm going to mention it again anyway, what the heck? And that is that I like the Centaurian because of one thing, my dear friends. That wonderful, beautiful particle cannon. Yes, to hit sucks. It has a to hit like a photon. I will grant you that one point which makes it really bad. But the one beautiful thing about particle cannons is that it is a capacitor. And given that it is a capacitor, that means that you can fire it either overload or standard, depending upon the tactical situation. So if you have enough energy to be overloaded, you get no penalty, except for possibly the normal capacitor recharge fee, kind of holding fee. It's a holding cost which is equal to half of the capacitor's, how much it's in the capacitor. So not great, but could be worse. Could be a rolling delay, like the Andromeda CRs, or like the Hellbore, which is pointed out. If you have the Hellbores, when it comes to either a Hydron or possibly an Orion or even a Win Oxbox, if you overload that sucker, you're stuck. You have to hope and pray with all your might that you will get within range 8 of your opponent. Now, obviously, normally you won't do that unless you have a guarantee that you will get within range 8 of opponent, in which case then you can use your actual overloaded Hellbore. So you wouldn't do that unless you are guaranteed of it. But, that just means you have to more tactical plan. You're less flexible at all. And of course, if your opponent knows that you're going to be within overloaded range, he might adjust it so that you only have so many opportunities to stay in the overloaded range. It's a glancing overload range, so you don't get the good ranges and so forth. Obviously, any good opponent will do that no matter what, because the closer in that you are, the more damage that you can cause. Now, leaving aside some of the Omega weapons, which are, I think it's, Omega weapons. I think it was the Sigvarians. Sigvarians. They have that kind of wacky weapon which is optimized for a certain range, and it's better, it's worse at closer or farther away, which is again goofy. So, but anyway, I think this is going to be this tournament is going to be interesting. Heck, it'd be really fun because I noticed that Mr. Paul Scott. For those of you who don't know who Paul Scott is a multi-rated ace gold hat winner. He is one of the best tacticians out there that I've ever had the pleasure to meet. I'm not sure if I played against him, because Lord knows if I've ever played against him, I've lost. I know that for a fact. I still remember the one time I played against Chuck Strong. Yeah, that's his name. Chuck Strong. Chuck Strong was playing the Orion. I was playing the Andromedan. It was one of the few times I've ever gotten the Andromedan to do and the Orion to get exactly where I wanted, which is I forced the Orion to take the T-bomb and hit it. He hit the T-bomb. But unfortunately, the bad part of that is he still won because he went for a third het and he succeeded. But I forced him to make a third het. A third het! Can you believe that? But anyhow, I think we'll wrap it up there. So, my friends, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.